Hello, everyone. How are you all doing? I hope you're all doing well. Welcome to the third and penultimate installment of the Encode and Stellar Educate series. I'm very glad that you kind of stuck with us for the third installment, and we have a very exciting workshop lined up today. It should be a very interactive session as well, which you can all join along with. It should be very exciting. I will be introducing the speaker in a minute, but I'll just give a little bit more time before I get into kind of any of the details. For those of us that potentially weren't here in the first couple of episodes, I'll also do a quick run through of the topics that we covered last Thursday and the one before that, and also an introduction on to what we have today. But yeah, I hope you're all having a good week and you're excited to learn more about developing your first app. But yeah, lovely to see familiar faces in the chat as well. Hello to everyone. Yeah, I mean, I think it's great to it'd be great to just get started really, and not delay any further, as I can see that most people are joining in. But yeah, just to get started off, I was just gonna kind of run through about what's been happening the last couple of weeks. So as you're probably familiar with by now, on our first week we had an introduction from Omji Park, who is our head of research and operations at Encode Club. And with this, for people that are potentially unfamiliar with Stellar, we covered the general architecture and features. And we also started delving into Soroban, which is a developer-friendly Rust-based smart contracts platform that works alongside the Stellar blockchain. And that was a great basis from which we could launch into the second workshop, which was then with Akashi, which is kind of a revolutionary smart contract platform built for Soroban. And in this, we got to a slightly more technical workshop to see how you can use Rust to write Soroban smart contracts and then deploy them onto Stellar. And I know people were very excited for that workshop, and it definitely didn't disappoint. And neither will the one we have today, which will be led by Julian Martinez, who is a senior developer advocate at the Stellar Development Foundation, and will be, for some of you, developing your first app, which is really exciting. And finally, kind of next week, which I'll kind of allude to at the end of the workshop, we will kind of be looking at the efficiency of Dapp, so a virtual workshop on data indexing from subquery. So what we're all here for today, and that is developing your first app on Stellar. And just to kind of give an introduction to the Stellar Development Foundation. So this is a non-profit organization which Julian works for and is created to create equitable access to the global financial system through blockchain technology. And this is a really opportune moment to be attending this workshop. And that's because we're now 1 week out from Protocol 20, which will bring smart contracts to the Stellar network and will be a really transformative upgrade to the Stellar network to date. So I'm sure Julian will be touching on this more in his workshop. And in fact, I think that's all from me now. So I will be inviting Julian to the stage, who will be able to kind of take this further and really launch into the workshop. But before you do that, I think some of you may have already seen it, but I did send some instructions for you in order to join this workshop. And I will add this to the chat as well. But if you do want to follow along and build, then please make sure that you do have Rust and Soroban installed. I will add all the details in the side of the chat as well, just so people can follow along and download this if they haven't done it so already. Hi, Julian.
Hey, how's it going, Michael? Thanks so much for having me here. Super excited to get this thing kicked off. And thanks for the audience for being here today.
Thank you very much. Yeah, I will remove my screen so that you can share yours. But please feel free to take it away.
Awesome. Well, welcome everybody to today's workshop. I'm super excited to dive into the amazing topics that we have in store, where we will be developing your first Dapp on Stellar's Soroban. So just a quick overview. Today, we're not only diving into developing smart contracts, but we'll also be bridging them with front-end development as well to create a complete Dapp. Now, I'd like this to be like a pair programming like experience. So if you are on mobile, then no worries. But if you can get to a desktop, then I behoove you to do so. And if you are working on desktop, then I would invite you to run the following commands in your terminal to clone the Soroban Dapps challenge repo and check out our boilerplate branch. I'll go ahead and drop this here. All right, so I went ahead and dropped that in the chat, and I'll give you all a few an opportunity to get that set up on your local machines. But just to give you all an overview of what blockchain is, in case you don't already know, blockchain technology underpins not just cryptocurrencies, but a new wave of decentralized applications, aka dApps. Stellar was founded in 2014 mainly as a cross-border payment system empowering the underbanked and unbanked. And in October of 2022, Stellar announced Soroban, a smart contract platform that allows developers to build and deploy contracts on the Stellar network. Now, as Michael had mentioned earlier, we are just 1 week away from our validator vote that will bring smart contracts to mainnet. So now more than ever is a super exciting time to build on Stellar. And I'd like to take the time to thank the core engineers who have not only been hard at work to bring us the best functionalities with the core protocol, but also hard work from the AHA Labs team on the Soroban CLI, and as well as George, who maintains the JavaScript SDK, which will really allow us to integrate these front-end components and enhance the Dapp development experience. So as we mentioned earlier, Soroban is the smart contracts platform that uses the robust and efficient Rust language. So if you haven't dabbled in Rust yet, this will be a good introduction for you. So without further ado, I'll go ahead and share my screen and we'll get it kicked off with some code. All right. We have this guy here. All right, so I've kind of made the font big here. So if you have any trouble, then please feel free to ping me in the chat and I can kind of make that bigger for you guys. But here's what the top level directory looks like. And yeah, let's just go ahead and dive right in. The first thing we're going to be taking a look at is our contracts folder. We've already kind of set up this project as a boilerplate. So we'll be working from the Soroban modified hello world contract project. And as the name entails, you could probably guess that we'll be creating a hello world contract with some added functionality. You see here that our dependencies are reliant on our workspace TOML file. So let's go ahead and check this out. As you can see, we'll be using the Soroban SDK 20.3.1. The latest is actually 20.3.2. And if you want to check out get more insights for the Rust SDK, then I highly suggest you check that out in Soroban's official documentation. All right. So let's go ahead and get it kicked off with our smart contract here. All right, so first things first, as Morgan may have mentioned in his workshop, Soroban smart contracts actually do not use the standard library because they are just too large for, they take up too much memory for what would be conducive to being efficient for storage on the blockchain. So we actually use the Soroban SDK instead. And we'll just go ahead and get right to it. We'll introduce a couple of data types here. So we're going to need env, also going to need vec, symbol short, and we're also going to need vec here, contract, and contract implementation. Now, I'll keep unpacking details as we move along, but if you feel the need to ask any questions, then you can either ask them in the chat and maybe Michael can stop me, or you can hold those to the end, and I'll be happy to answer any of those questions. All right, so now that we have our types and macros and attributes here, let's go ahead and build some logic out. So we're actually going to create like a key value type system here. So we're just going to create some titles for our keys right now. Message. And it's going to be type symbol, symbol short. All right, so if you notice here, we use the data type symbol, which is another word for string here. So there's two types. We have a short symbol, which is a string of up to 9 characters, and a long symbol, which is a string of up to 32 characters. Here we're making use of the macro symbol short, which enables us to quickly create a short symbol. So as you can see here, our string will be message. And again, we'll be referencing this later when it comes to our KV storage methods. So let's go ahead and continue. We're going to need one called counts. All right, and we're also going to need another one called last increment symbol. All right, so now we have 3 titles for 3 keys, and let's go ahead and get into our contract development here. Contract, construct, hello world. All right. And this attribute macro is going to mark the type as being the type that contract functions are attached for. And next up, we're going to introduce another attribute macro that will export the publicly accessible functions to the Soroban environment. And again, if you'd like more insight on that, highly suggest that you check out the RS Soroban SDK documentation. So we'll be importing this here. We'll say import Jello world, hello world, and let's go ahead and start with our functions. Function hello. Say inf. Oh. So is going to be a symbol, and we want this to return a vector symbols. All right, so just to quickly cover what we did here, we created a public function, meaning that it is accessible from other functions from inside this contract or outside of this contract if we were to make what's called a cross-contract call, meaning that if another contract had this contract's address, they could also call the hello function. Here we're passing in the data type end and also the symbol type. So our argument 2 is going to be a string where we will be constructing a greeting from. And as you can see, we're returning a vector of symbols. Now, a vector can be likened to an array. And as you can see here, the definition is a sequential and indexable growable collection type. In this case, we'll be creating a vector of symbols. So essentially an array of strings. So let's go ahead and move on here. We'll say let message equals, we're going to say vec, right? And we're going to have this and short. Hello, and then definitely don't want that. All right, and as you can see here, we're using our vec function that's going to enable us to quickly create a vector. And again, we're using our symbol short function that is going to allow us to quickly create a short symbol. And we're going to go ahead and return the message here. And let's close this out, see if we have any errors. Okay, so we're all good. One thing here is we actually need to set the greeting to the key message. So to do that, we're actually going to reference the storage of the smart contract. We'll say env storage instance set, and then you'll see key and value. So we're going to borrow this value here. We'll say message, and the value will be message. Actually, it will be borrowed again. Close that out. All right. And if you noticed here, we're using the instant storage. So there's 3 types of storage on Stellar. We are attempting to solve state bloat by introducing state expiration. That means that whenever you want data to persist for a long time, you're going to be using the persistent data type. If you need it to be referenced frequently, you're going to be using the instance data type. And if you don't need the data to stick around for a long time, you would use the temporary data type. And more insights on that on the Soroban official documentation in the state archival or state expiration tab. All right, so we've set this value message to the key message, and we're returning the vector of symbols, which is going to be hello plus our to symbol. All right, so moving forward, let's go ahead and create a getter. Let's say pub function get message, and boom, Copilot is amazing, right? So we are referencing the storage slot here, but we're not done yet. We have to unwrap that value. So let's go ahead and unwrap it. All right, so the getter is simply referencing the value at the key of message. All right, so easy enough. Let's go ahead and keep moving forward and add some incrementer functionality. So we'll say increment, and we'll pass in inf. We'll say increment going to be a U64, and we want to return a U64 here. All right, so we're going to define a count variable. So we'll say let mutable counts equals and storage get count. All right, so we're going to reference the value at the key count, and if there is no value there, we're just going to return the value 0. Now let's go ahead and improve this. So plus equals increment. Here we're redefining count as the sum of its current value plus the value we passed in for increment. Now let's go ahead and set this here. Again, Copilot doing a lot of work. Storage instance set last increment, which is going to be the increment that we passed in for the increment argument here. And let's go ahead and return the count at the very end. Cool. All right, so one more time, just a quick recap. What did we do? We pass in the argument increment, and we want to return the U64 value. We're defining count by unwrapping the current value that lives at the key count. We're getting the sum of its current value plus the value passed in for increment. Then we're setting the value for the key count here as the new updated count value. And then we're setting the value for last increment as the value we passed in for the increment argument. And finally, we're returning the U64 count. All right, let's go ahead and create some getters, right? So pub function get count, too easy. Again, we're just unwrapping the value that lives at the key count. And let's go ahead and get our last increment here. Function last increment. All right. So we have this here. Again, we're just unwrapping the value from the key last increment. All right. So this is going to do it for our smart contract here. Go ahead and give you all a full view. So we have a hello method that will set the message that we created to the key message. We have our getter function that unwraps the value that lives at the key message. We have our incrementer function that retrieves the current value of count, gets the sum or creates a sum from the current value plus the incrementer argument value. And then we go ahead and set the value for count as the updated count. And then we set the last increment the value for the key last increment as the argument we passed in for increment here, and then we're returning this, and then our getter functions simply unwrap the values that live at both of these keys. That'll do it for our smart contract. So let's go ahead and write some tests for it here. Let's go ahead and give it the flag configuration test, CFG test, cool. And we'll say use super. And we'll also introduce some Soroban SDK types. So we have symbol short. We're also going to need vec and env. Cool. So that should do it there. And let's go ahead and get into our test. We're going to say test function test. And default, say let contract, oops, equal and register contract. I'm going to say none here. And then we're going to say hello world. Hello world. All right, so end register contract. So that looks good to me. And let's go ahead and create a client so we can actually call some of these methods from the contract. All right, equals, let's say hello world. Say client new. And contract ID. Okay, so far so good. Now let's go ahead and start writing some functions to test out. We're going to say client hello symbol short word or world. And let's go ahead and let's go ahead and create some assertion tests. So we're saying that once we call the function get message, we should see the vector of two short symbols. One will be hello and one will be world. Let's go ahead and test out our incrementer functions. So again, if you remember on the smart contract here, once we call the increment function, we actually return the count value. So we will be incrementing by 5, and that means the last count should be 5. Let's go ahead and call that again, but instead of 5, we'll do 6 here, meaning the last increment or the last count value should be 11. And then let's go ahead and test out our getters for get count and assert equals our last increment. All right, so what are we doing here? We're calling hello and we're passing in the argument world. And then we're asserting that once we call the get message function, we should get a vector or an array of 2 symbols. The first word should be hello as defined here in our function where we create the message. And then the second word should be world. Moving on, once we call our incrementer function, we're incrementing by 5. It's going to return the current count value, which should also be 5. Again, we're going to call that, but this time we're passing in the value of 6, meaning that our count value should be updated by the sum, should be updated and should be the sum of the previous argument and the new argument passed in. So meaning 5 plus 6, which should be 11. Next, we're going to get the current count value, which should also be 11, and then the last increment, which should be 6. So we're going to test this by running cargo test. Going to wait for this to build here. All right, what went wrong? 0 pass 0. Oh, sorry. I forgot. We actually have to. There we go. Now what do we got here? Contract ID. And contract ID. Let's see. Oh, this is expecting this type here. Contract ID, symbol short. I guess it's expecting this here, huh? Okay. Should client. Oh, sorry. We need end here. Also need to borrow these values as well. All right. Did I mention there would be some live debugging during this workshop? All right, so it looks like our tests have passed, meaning our functions are executing as expected. And I'll pause here because that kind of like wraps up our smart contract development portion of the workshop. So if there's any questions, I'd love to take some now. I'll just take a quick look at the chat. Live debugging is the best. Thanks, Morgan. YOLO.
I don't see many specific questions yet, but I'm sure they will come through. I'm sure people are just following along.
Where do you clone the Git? I can go ahead and pass this in one more time. All right, United Code or United Coin, that should do it for you. Please show lib file for a sec, no problem. All right, so I'll go ahead and move on for the sake of time. So now that we've developed our smart contracts here, the next step is going to be to actually deploy these on FutureNet. I'm going to take a quick look at one of our scripts here to ensure that we will be deploying to FutureNet. Yep. So as you can see, we'll actually be running this script a little bit later. And the first script that is running in this sequence is initialize sh. So let's go ahead and open this up here. Now, the first half is filled out. We won't dive too deep into it, but just know that we're specifying the network configurations to point at FutureNet. So essentially what we're doing is adding the network to a network configuration to the Soroban CLI, and then we're storing the variables that will be needed later on when we generate the TypeScript bindings. And we'll dive more into that. But what we're really going to want to pay attention to is starting on line 64. So if you see here, if there is no Soroban identity already generated, we're actually going to create an example user that is going to be responsible for deploying the contract. So we're going to say Soroban config identity generate example user, and then we're going to point it at the network that we specify in the command, which is going to be FutureNet. And then we're going to go ahead and save the address and secret key to a Soroban file that will be later generated. Moving on to line 77, we're then going to fund this example user address using FriendBot. But now it's time for the pair programming part. So let's go ahead and keep defining some variables here. So we're going to kind of create a arguments variable, which is just going to specify the network that we want to work from and the source or signer, which is going to be the account responsible for deploying the contracts here. So as you can see, network is going to be network, and then the source is going to be the example user that we generate here. Let's go ahead and move on to the contract deployment part. echo, let's say deploying the contracts. Cool. And let's say hello world ID equals, we'll say Soroban SDK, Soroban contract deploy. Then we're going to want to pass in the args here. And then we're going to want to specify the WASM file. Oops, actually, let's get this up. Building contracts, Soroban contract build. We're going to say Soroban contract build. So what this command is going to do is going to compile the Rust file into WASM, and then we're going to use this in the next step after when we're deploying the contract. So we'll say Soroban contract deploy with args, and then we're going to go ahead and give this a backslash here, WASM, and we're going to say target WASM release. This is going to be Soroban modified hello world, right? Soroban modified hello world contract. Okay, so this should be all good to go. Once this is deployed, let's go ahead and give it some more messages here. Let's say, sure, why not? That'll work. And let's go ahead and save that to the side. Echo. Sure. All right, let's go ahead and run this. So we're actually going to run npm run setup. Sorry, I just noticed a mistake here. Should be WASM 32. So we'll go ahead and stop that there. Should be WASM 32 -unknown -unknown. We'll go ahead and release. All right, we'll go ahead and run that again. Error reading. Okay. Soroban modified hello world contract. Huh. No file target. What? Should not be the case. All right, so I'm gonna actually go ahead and just paste this in. How is that not the case? Target, awesome. Tracked, say built. So it should be generated here, Soroban. Did I spell something wrong? Modified hello world contract. Huh. Let's go ahead and try this again. All right, so we got this here. We got the location of the file correct. And now we are generating our TypeScript bindings. All right. So we've deployed the hello world contract with this ID here. And if you see, this is actually part of the second half of the script. So the script npm run setup. So let's go ahead and take a look at this one more time. As you can see, we have npm run build contract. So again, big shout out to the folks at the AHA Labs team for introducing this functionality into the CLI. This command here, Soroban contract bindings TypeScript, it actually enables us to create TypeScript bindings from the WASM file. So really, without this, we wouldn't be able to bring in TypeScript libraries when developing components for the front end. So let's actually go ahead and take a look at what these look like here. They're stored in the Soroban file. If I open this here, you actually have this library of a TypeScript library that contains all the methods here. And it's just really awesome because it also leverages the Stellar SDK. So it assembles the transactions, builds them for you, and really abstracts away a lot of the process and development time it would take to kind of like build this all yourself. So we'll get into more of this a little bit later, but just a quick highlight there. All right, so let's go ahead and close this out. And now is time for the front-end development part of this. So let's go ahead and dive into our components here. And we structured this in the following way: atoms, molecules, and organisms. Let's go ahead and take a look at some of these components here. First, we have our card, which is just a div stylized with the style module CSS file. And if you are creative, I highly encourage you to take advantage of your creativity and kind of mess around with these variables and really express yourself here. I've kind of have like a bare bones boilerplate style version. So this is what we'll be working with. Let's go ahead and start creating some other components here. We're going to dive into our connect button. So we'll import this here, and let's start by creating an interface. Export interface, connect button props, and we're just going to need a label. Label here is going to be a string, and let's just close this out. And let's go ahead and export our function. Say connect button, which is going to be a label, connect button props. And we're going to get into our return statement. So we can say button, class name. We're actually going to use the button style. And then we're going to pass in our label here, actually. Close this out and add this guy here. All right, so we're just creating a connect button that's going to host a label, which is a string, and we'll go ahead and keep moving on. By the way, this is also going to be stylized with the style module CSS folder, and we're just going to be exporting these from our index. Let's go ahead and close out the atoms folder and move on to our molecules, which is our wallet data. So I also have this on another screen. So we're going to be using a couple of hooks here, which we'll kind of unpack in a minute. Import, say, use account, and use is mounted from our hooks. Then we're going to import our connect button from our atoms folder here. And then we're going to export function, say wallet data, define this here. Whoa. Yep, that's correct. That's correct here. And we're going to get into our return statements. Return. Let's say mounted and accounts. We're going to say, yep, div class name styles, and we're going to call the, actually going to say display data. Display data, close this out here. Next, we're going to say Give this another div. Oops. Pass name, we're going to say styles, and this one is going to be card. And close this out, and we're going to say account dot display name. Account dot display name. Close this out here. And then we are going to close out this div. All right, so now we have this all closed out. Let's go ahead and complete this return statement here. Sure, why not? Wanted an account. Display data. Okay, what is going on here? Unreachable code. Account is possibly undefined. Return. Whoops. Sorry about that, guys. More live debugging, eh? All right. So what do we have here? If the account, if the, what's it called? If mounted is true and the account is also here, then we're just going to display a div, which is going to have the card style, and then we're going to display the account display name. Now is a good time to actually dive into some of these hooks. And also big shout out to Pial and the rest of the folks working on the Freighter wallet. This is our Freighter API, which makes it easy to integrate Freighter into our dApps. I'm not going to unpack everything just yet, but I'm not going to unpack everything here, but just know that this calls the Freighter API and enables it to display your address and creates a display name here, which is the first 4 and last 4 characters of the public key of the wallet. And this is going to appear on the front end of your dApp. So the hooks kind of like make it easy to create these components here, which is what we leverage in our wallet data component here. So if both of these values are true, then it's going to display the connect button filled with the display name, which is the first 4 and last 4 digits of the public key. And if not, it's just going to display the connect button with the words connect wallet. All right, so moving on. So this is the big kahuna here, our hello world file, where we'll really be defining, you know, the main component of the dApp. We're going to bring everything together, and hopefully we get a full-fledged functioning front end that connects with the back end after we are done here. I'll kind of like pause for any questions or just make sure everyone is kind of like caught up to speed. Yep, the big Mike, the big daddy, of course. All right, so is everyone kind of like caught up? Do I need to like revisit anything, or is everyone kind of like moving at the same pace? All right, Morgan says, let's go. I'll take his word for it. Yasen Grancharov says, all good on my end. So there's some positive reinforcing affirmations. So let's go ahead and dive right in. First things first, we're going to import the card here. Sure. Card, and then we're going to import, oh, sorry, one step that we missed actually. So one thing that is really cool about the TypeScript bindings is we actually will create components based off of them, and that's very vague, but let's go ahead and just like dive into how this works, and I'll unpack as we go. Import any as hello world and we're going to say hello world contract, right? So you can see that we're actually importing this, meaning that we can reference all the methods here. And the way that we're able to do this is that actually when we ran npm installed the hello world contract from the file here stored in the Soroban folder. So again, the TypeScript library is now available to us. Let's go ahead and go back to our shared folder in the contracts TS file. So we're going to be importing import config from, and this is just going to be a file here, config.json, and we're going to say const, and we're going to need network, and we're also going to need RPC URL equals config, right? And if you could see here in our config.json, we have our network and our RPC URL. So we'll start creating our contract objects from these. Let's say export const hello world. We're going to say equals new hello world contract. I'm going to say CURL. I'm going to say that hello world network as a type of network. All right, so now that we have our hello world object here, we're actually pointing it towards the correct RPC URL, which is going to be aiming at FutureNet. And this kind of just abstracts away a lot of the work that we would have to do when we're just simply trying to call the correct endpoint for the network that we'll be working on. And now that we've created this object, we can import this into our other front-end components here, where we can say import hello world from the shared contracts folder. Next up, all right, so we have our styles. So let's go ahead and get into our main function. Let's say const hello world. Oh, it's a function. Yep, sure, why not? And let's go ahead and get into our setter messages here. Let's say to and set to. Set to use state empty string. Sure, we'll say const count, set count, use state. We're actually going to use strings for all of these. Let's say const increment set increment cr use state. All right. So far, we have our to, count, increment, and our we're going to need our new increment. Const new increment, set new increment. And we're going to need a message. This is actually going to be an array, right, or vector. Here we go. And then we're going to say const. We're going to need increment success. All right, cool. Now that we have some variables defined, let's go ahead and get into our handlers. So the first one we're going to create is the handler for calling the hello function. Handle hello. We're going to make this async. Say function here, async function arrow. All right, so we're going to say const hello transaction equals await hello world dot hello, and we're going to be passing in the to argument. So to Oops. N2. All right. Next up, we are going to, we're actually going to also add a fee to this. Fee. It's going to be 100 stroops to call this transaction. And something new that we have to do now is actually specify that we are signing this transaction. So we're going to say hello, hello transaction dot sign and send. And this is going to enable us to sign the transaction using Freighter in the front end. All right, so we're actually going to create a try catch for this. Try. All right. And we're going to say, here we go, catch error. And we're going to say console error. Let's see if everything's working out so far. How are we doing? Okay, so this is our hello handler. So it's going to handle when we call the hello method on the front end. We'll be passing in the to argument saying there is a fee of 100 stroops. After this line is executed, we'll be waiting on the sign and send function, which should send a pop-up, which should make Freighter pop up in the front end, where we will then sign that transaction. If there's an error, it's going to go ahead and log it. Moving on, let's go ahead and create our increment handler. So we'll say handle const handle increment. Sure, why not? We try. Yep, await hello world. And we're actually going to want this to be increment. I guess we want this to be a number, right? Increment use, right? We'll see. Number increment. Big int. All right. Moving forward. Let's say await. Yep. Await sign and send. If anything, we're going to catch the error, and then we're going to console log that there. All right, so that is the handler for increment. Next up, we're going to create the handlers for our getter function. So we'll say const handle, sorry guys, handle get message. Async try. This is not what we need. So we are actually going to, we're going to use a couple of different methods here. So we're going to define a response. We're going to say const response equals await hello world dot get message, and there's no arguments here, right? So we say this guy actually need the result, right? So get that result. And then we're going to say set message as the response. If there's an error, we're just going to go ahead and log that error there. Just make sure everything is all good, no errors so far. So far we have our hello world handler, or our hello method handler, our increment method handler, and our get message handler. So let's go ahead and create some more handlers for our increments. See if Copilot gets the gist so far. Let's say get increment. We're going to say get count, set count as the response, big int. I guess we need to say big int. All right. So apparently we're looking for a string here, and we're just going to go ahead and see if that rides. Last but not least, we're going to get the last count. Get message, get increment. We'll make this get count. get count. And last but not least, we'll say get last increment. So again, try and catch. We're going to say const response equals await. Should be dot get last increment result. What are we looking for here? Get last. All right. Then we're going to set the new increment to the as a string. Then we're going to go ahead and catch that error. Anything, we're going to console log it. All right. So that should do it for our handlers. So a quick recap. Let me close the console here, or the terminal. Quick recap. We have our hello method handler where we're passing in a to argument. We're waiting to, we're assigning and sending that transaction. We have our increment handler here where we are awaiting the increment function, passing in a big int as an increment, as an argument for our increment. Then we're going to sign and send that transaction. Following the same pattern here, we're kind of just getting the results of our get message method once it's called. Then we're going to go ahead and set the message here with our response. Same thing happening here for our handler for getting the count, calling the method get count and getting that result, then setting that variable count to the result from the response. Again, same thing with the last increment. All right, so now let's go ahead and get into our return statement here. We have return. All right, so we have a div here. Div, we're gonna say, we're just gonna close this out. And let's go ahead and put the card here. Card. And let's go ahead and define a, I'm gonna go ahead and turn this off real quick because it's kind of like annoying. All right, so card, and say h2, which is a header, and we'll say call contract methods. Call contract methods, and then we'll just introduce another div. All right, so div here, we'll say class name, and we're gonna say styles dot, we're gonna say form group. Again, we're gonna say close that out here, and then we're gonna give this a label. So we'll say label, give this a class name here as well, equals styles label. All right, and then we're going to say recipient. Here. Next up, we're going to add another element here. This time it's going to be an input. So this is where things actually start getting a little interesting. I'm going to say the type equals text, not test, text. Then we're going to say the value equals 2. After this, on change, we are going to say error set 2, and we're going to say e.target dot value, e.target value, and we're going to give this the class name right here. Class name is going to be styles input. Here we go. Input. All right, so that should kind of like close this out here. Oh, we forgot the closing tag. All right. Next up, we're going to introduce the button for the handler that is going to, we're going to introduce the button for our handle hello variable here. All right, so first things first, we're going to say button. We're going to say on click, and we're going to say handle hello, and give this a class name. Class name is going to be styles button. Next up, we're going to just kind of give this a message here. Write message. That's closed out there. We're going to add some breaks. So we're going to say br and add another one here. We're going to add another div here for the increment function. So we'll say div class name, equals. It's going to be styles form group. Close this out here. Form group. We're going to give this a label. Class name. Styles label. All right, and we're going to say increment. All right, so increment here. Label increment, and we're going to now actually give this an input as well. So first things first, open up that input tab. Input is going to be the type equals number. We're going to say value equals, and we're going to say increments on change. I'm going to say the set increment with the target value, e.target value. All right, so we are looking good here, e.target.value, and let's go ahead and give this a style, class name, styles, we're gonna say, sorry guys, inputs. All right, so we're looking good so far, and let's just go ahead and keep moving on. Actually, I'm kind of curious to see how this looks right now. So maybe we could close this out. What do we need to close out this card, right? So we'll say card. And then what is missing here? Click handle hello, handle increment. Oh, I didn't add a button to this yet, so let's go ahead and actually do that. Let's say button. Say button here. On click, we'll say handle increment class name equals styles. We'll say button. We want this to say, what do we want this to say, guys? Increment. Okay, so this is looking good so far. Button div, why is this?
I think there's some advice in the chat from Morgan and Mateus.
All right, love to hear it. Oh, sorry. Oh yeah, good call, guys. Thank you. Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm not really reading the chat.
No, it's all right. I will flag if there's anything useful that can help.
What am I doing wrong here? Input. Oh, right. Cool. And all right, I'm going to close this chat or else I'm going to start laughing. So what do we got here? We have this card that should contain both of these. Kind of want to see how this looks real quick. So div. Close this out. Do I need one more div or what? Copilot back. Div. Should probably do this. And one more closing guy here. Yeah. All right. So I kind of want to see how this looks. So I'm going to run npm run dev. I'm going to open it up on my local host real quick. Oh, yes, we are not all the way there yet. It is still breaking on my front end. So looks like we have a unclosed header somewhere. Maybe this is a good time to kind of invite some advice to from the crowd, or I could move on. Let's see what we got here. Header and line 14. Index 11. Oh, so this is actually saving. I was saving this for the last part, but I am curious to see how this works so far. So let's import hello world, right? Do we export this actually? Export const hello world. I don't think we exported it yet. So we'll say export and we'll say hello world. Cool. Now we can bring this in, right? Hello world. And we actually want wallet data here. And this is actually in the index page or the index file in the pages directory. So if you are following along, this is where we are so far. So what do we want here? We want wallet data, and then we want hello world. All right, that should do it. It's compiling, and I'll take another look at my front end here. Where's that link? I'm lazy. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and share another screen real quick to just kind of show you guys what the progress is so far. This is on my local host. So far we have our connect button that we defined. We have our recipient, and we have our increment functions here. I'll go ahead and click connect wallet. And it doesn't look like that is functioning as expected. Actually, I want to see world, see if this works here. Open up my freighter account, actually. Here, log in. Futurenet. All right, so you can see here, can y'all see my screen still? Actually, I kind of closed out.
I can still see your screen.
Okay, cool. So as you can see here, I was clicking it, but I wasn't signed into Freighter yet. So after I did that,
we can see as in like your the Soroban quick start. Is that the screen that we're meant to be on?
Yep. So the connect button wasn't working yet because I had not yet signed into Freighter. But after I did that, clicked it again, and as you could see, first 4 digits, last 4 digits as we defined in our display name, or as is defined in the display name of the use account hook. Let's go ahead and try writing a message here. All right, I don't think you guys can see the pop-up, but Freighter did just pop up and ask me to approve a message, which I just did. And I'll just go ahead and create or write in this value for increment here. And I also just signed and approved that message as well. So we can't see it yet because we have not yet created we have not implemented the code for the getter functions. So let's go ahead and head back over to VS Code and do that. So we'll share the VS Code screen here. All right, so we're closing out this div. And then let's go ahead and start with the next section where we get our contract state variables. So again, we'll just be starting with a div, similar to how we did earlier. We'll say div, and then we're going to be introducing the card element again, and we'll just give this a title. We'll say h2, right? h2, and we'll just say like get greeting and count or whatever. All right, so we got to close this guy out, say /h2. Here we go. Nope. /header2, get greeting and count. Let's go ahead and start with our button here. Button on click. This is going to equal handle get message. Perfect. And we want to give this a class. So we'll say class name equals styles button. And we're just going to go ahead and be like, you know, get the message. Get message. Too easy. So we have that there. We should have a button in the front end if you're following along, and you also have the local deployment on port 3000. You should see the implementation there. Next up, let's go ahead and create another div where we'll actually just like present that message. So we say div, oh my gosh, div, say strong, and we want to be like class name styles strong text. And again, we're getting all these styles from this file here, the style module CSS file. So moving on, we're going to say strong text, and we're going to be like message. All right, so strong there. Going to give this a break. br / close that out real quick. Add another element here. And we're going to say styles, and we have a style here, pre-formatted text. All right, we're going to go ahead and bring in the message object here. So we'll say, oops, $, and we'll say message. Too easy. Close out that pre element and closing out that div element. All right, let's go ahead and see what this is all looking like so far. I'm just going to open up the front end. Feel free to open up your front end as well. And you should see something that says get message. I see a button that says get message as well. All right, so let's go ahead and move forward here. Div pre, that looks good. Div here. Let's go ahead and add a break for our next section. This is all going to be contained in the same card, so I'll kind of leave that card element hanging. Say, give this a break. All right. And then we'll start our next section, which is going to be another button. It's going to be div. And we'll say button. Give this a class name. Styles dot button. It's a title. We'll say get last increment. Make this title case. The last increment. Cool. And then let's go ahead and introduce the same exact kind of patterns here with the div and strong text. We'll say div again. close this guy out. Strong. We're going to say div strong. We're going to say class name. Class name. Strong text. Styles. Strong text. All right, and then we are going to close this out. Or we're saying get message, key format. Excuse me, I think I'm getting mixed up here. We have handle get message, right? And strong text, preformat text, message. All right, we have our break, div button. Whoops, I did not implement the button where we're actually getting the last increment. So we actually just need to introduce that here. On click, and we're just going to say handle, and we said last increment. Cool, so that's all looking good. Get last increment. Closing out this button here. You have div strong text. Okay, let's go ahead and close this out here. Last increment. Cool. Last increment. All right, and then we're going to add some more elements here. We're going to say pre class name equals styles, pre-formatted text, and then we're going to bring in our new increment object. New increment. Cool. Next up, we're going to close out these divs. All right, this is closed, this is closed. And I'm just going to go ahead and take another look at the front end, which I'll present here. Share screen. All right, so looks like it's working, right? Let's go ahead and make another increment. We'll say 50. I'll go ahead and sign that transaction. We'll just do another example here. Bob, sign that transaction in Freighter. Give it a second to be written to the ledger. All right, we have hello Bob, and our last increment is 50. All right, so that is the that's the first couple of functions here, right? We have our hello function where we pass in the to argument, our incrementer function where we pass in the increment argument. And last but not least, let's go ahead and get the count. So thank you so much for hanging in there with me so far, but we are in the final stretch of things, and we can see the light on the horizon, so to speak. So let's go ahead and get to it.
No, thank you very much, Julian. I mean, it's been great so far. I was just gonna say, like, as just a friendly reminder, like, I think obviously the workshop had been planned for like kind of an hour, roughly an hour. So I don't want to rush you for the final part, and I know we're almost there, but some people may have to slip out and catch up on a little bit of the recording later. But
yes, no problem at all.
Through the final part.
Problem at all.
I'm happy to stay as long as you need to kind of finish this off.
Okay. Well, in that case, I'll leave it up to the audience to go ahead and implement the same methods that we just did to get the last, or to handle the handle get count functionality. It's going to be the same exact thing as you did for handling the getting the results for the last increment and then bringing them to the front end. So pretty much it's going to be the same thing we did here. Excuse me, except for you would just kind of like replace this with handle get count, which I think we can actually just like pull off. Just do this. See, I don't want to start getting into the weeds of debugging on a front end right now, but essentially you would pretty much do this. The only thing you would replace, the only thing you would do is replace the on click here with handle get count. So I'll go ahead and stop the portion of the front end development section here, but I would like to take this a step further. If you see here in the package.json file, we're actually importing the Vercel. We're actually importing Vercel as a dependency. So we're going to deploy this to Vercel by running npx Vercel prod. And it may ask you to log in if you haven't already, but I've already done some legwork and kind of done that for us here. So I'd just like to demonstrate how we can actually deploy this to a static site on the web. So after this, I'll share the link and y'all can interact with it. So we'll deploy it to here. Yes, we'll say reader. Oh, one thing. I need to rm rf target. All right, here you go. Yes. Say no, and we'll say greeter be 215. I'm gonna set up the project here. We're not gonna need to worry about modifying any settings, but this is actually going to be deployed to a static site using Vercel. So once this gets done building, then we can visit that and start passing in arguments for the count and the greeting. Dang. We really took it to 1 hour and 21. Thank you all for sticking with us so far. It's been quite a journey, but hopefully it has been enlightening and you learned something. We'll wait for this to build so I can share the front end with y'all, excuse me, and then we'll be on our way. I'm just going to go ahead and take a look on my side. All right, so we have this here. Open. We should be able to get away with just going greeter215.vercel. Yep. All right, everybody. So the site is done building and it is up and running. Let's go ahead and share this here. Should be able to see the front end here at, oh, let me share my screen as well. Share screen, greeter215. All right, so y'all should see the same screen here. And if you notice, we still have the data that we passed in from our local deployment because it is just reading data from the smart contract. So only difference now is that instead of being on my local machine, it is on a static site using Vercel. So if I connect my wallet, click that button there. Again, sorry guys. So something is happening where I get signed out of Freighter. Oops. Let's see, Bob. Wait. So essentially, we should be able to click this connect button and connect to Freighter and start calling these methods here. But this is an example of how you can serve the site using Vercel. But yeah, that kind of like rounds out the developer workshop here. And if you enjoyed what you see here, then I'd invite you to kind of check out the Soroban Dapp challenge, where you can actually log in using your Freighter wallet. You can log in using your Freighter wallet, and it's like a gamified approach to completing various Dapp development tasks, where you can connect your wallet here, deploy smart contracts, plug them in here, and work through the Dapp deployment tasks all the way to the end. And every step along the way, if you read the copy here, it provides an amazing amount of context. And, I really aim for it to be a learning experience, not just something that you can kind of click through. So if I click this button here, you notice we get an error message because this is actually not a real contract and there has been no deposits made. So it actually does require that you interact with it a little bit. And if you like what you learned here today, and you want to learn more about the dApps that we have to offer on Soroban, there is a series of challenges here. So far, we have 4 boilerplates that you can actually walk through the course with and deploy the smart contracts, build the front end, and then ultimately host the site on Vercel at the end here. So that wraps it up for me. And I really hope you learned something so far. I really hope you learned something during the session, and thank you all so much for being a part of the journey. Michael, I'll hand it back to you.
Thank you very much, Julian, and thank you for such like a comprehensive talk. I feel like we've been on this sort of journey, so really appreciate you for like giving up so much of your time as well. And from the chat, it seems like everyone else in the audience is too. So we really appreciate you doing this, and I hope that people following along actually kind of manage to stick with it. And obviously, like if you couldn't quite keep up, then please do keep an eye out for the recording, and I'm sure that you'll be able to like do this again almost in like a live fashion, and you can build on your first app. And as we were saying at the start, it's really a great time to be doing this on Stellar, and really the most exciting time with like the mainnet potentially going live in around a week's time. So yeah, this is great. I think before we kind of wrap things up, I just wanted to kind of flag next week's workshop. So this will actually be the last, which feels like it's gone so fast, but this is the 4th and final workshop. I will share my screen now just so I can give you all a quick idea. But we will be hearing from Subquery, and the representative from Subquery is called BG, and specifically we'll be looking at data indexing. So for those of you that are potentially less familiar with Subquery, they're a protocol that's designed to enhance dApps, so providing efficient frameworks for indexing, querying, and aggregating blockchain data. Subquery supports multiple blockchains, so offers a wide range of flexibility, and it kind of simplifies the process of accessing blockchain information by allowing developers to precisely define the data they need. So I think this will be a really, really useful workshop. And as you might see, there's been a kind of an evolution from the beginning where we just got an introduction. The last 2 have been more technical building ones. And this one, we're now from building your first app, we're now looking at actually the efficiency within it. So this should be a great way to round things off. And I hope you are excited as I am to come back here next week. But yeah, I think we'll leave that here for today. Please do keep an eye out on important resources. I've shared the link to Encode's Discord, and I'll do that now as well. And also, I think there, as Julian said, please do check out the Soroban dApps challenge. I shared the link earlier, but I can also share that on Discord after the chat, so if people didn't quite get it. And yeah, apart from that, thank you very much, everyone, for coming. And I will see you all next Thursday for a workshop on Subquery. And the last thank you as well to Julian for his amazing workshop. Take care, everyone.
Thank you guys so much. Take care.